Something massive is spreading across the crypto space right now, and it has shocked millions of XRP holders around the world because people are claiming that a major financial media giant has confirmed XRP could reach $60,000 in just a matter of weeks. And if that sounds unbelievable, that is because it actually is. But here is where it gets interesting because behind this viral headline, there is a deeper story that most people are completely missing. And once you understand what is really happening, you will see why smart investors are paying close attention while others are blindly following hype. So the real question is not whether XRP can hit $60,000, but what is actually driving this narrative and what it could mean for the future of XRP. The crypto market has always been driven by two powerful forces. One is real development and adoption, and the other is hype and speculation. And right now, the topic of XRP reaching extremely high price levels like $60,000 is sitting right at the center of these two forces, creating confusion among investors who are trying to understand what is real and what is simply viral noise spreading across social media platforms. Over the past few weeks, many posts, videos, and discussions have started circulating online claiming that a major financial publication has confirmed that XRP could reach $60,000 within weeks. And this kind of statement naturally grabs attention because it suggests life changing wealth in a very short period of time, which is exactly the type of narrative that spreads rapidly in the crypto space, especially among new investors who are looking for the next big opportunity. However, when we step back and actually analyze the situation carefully, we begin to notice something very important, and that is the lack of any verified source supporting this claim because there is no official report, no confirmed article, and no credible statement from established financial institutions that supports the idea of XRP reaching such an extreme valuation in such a short time frame, which immediately raises questions about where this narrative is coming from and why it is gaining so much attention. The reality is that XRP is already a major player in the cryptocurrency market, and it has built its reputation based on its utility in cross border payments and its connection with financial institutions through Ripple's network. And this real world use case is what gives XRP its long term potential, not viral headlines or unrealistic price predictions that ignore basic economic principles like market capitalization and supply dynamics. If XRP were to reach $60,000 per coin, the total market value of XRP would reach levels that are beyond the entire global economy, which makes such a scenario extremely unrealistic under current conditions. And this is why many experienced investors and analysts focus on more practical growth scenarios based on adoption, regulation, and market expansion rather than extreme numbers that are not supported by data. At the same time, it is important to understand why these types of headlines continue to appear because they are not random and they often follow patterns that we have seen many times in the crypto market, where excitement builds around a specific asset due to ongoing developments, and then exaggerated claims begin to spread as more people start paying attention, creating a cycle where hype feeds on itself and attracts even more attention. In the case of XRP, there are actually several real developments happening that are worth paying attention to, including increasing discussions around regulatory clarity, potential institutional adoption, and the expansion of Ripple's payment network across different regions. And these factors are genuinely important because they can influence the long term value of XRP in a meaningful way, even if they do not support extreme short term price predictions. This is where smart investors separate themselves from the crowd because instead of chasing headlines, they focus on understanding the underlying fundamentals of the asset, including how it is being used, who is adopting it, and what kind of real world demand is being created. Because in the long run, it is these factors that determine the success or failure of any cryptocurrency, not viral claims that appear overnight and disappear just as quickly. So while the idea of XRP reaching $60,000 may sound exciting and even tempting to believe, the real opportunity lies in understanding what is actually happening behind the scenes and why XRP continues to remain one of the most discussed cryptocurrencies in the market today. Because once you understand that, you can make more informed decisions instead of being influenced by unrealistic expectations. To fully understand why this $60,000 XRP narrative is spreading so aggressively, it is important to look at how information actually moves in the crypto space. Because unlike traditional financial markets where news is mostly controlled by verified institutions, the crypto market is heavily influenced by social media, influencers, and viral content that can reach millions of people within minutes without any proper verification. What usually happens in situations like this is that a single piece of misleading or misunderstood information starts circulating, and then it gets picked up by multiple accounts, reposted with slightly different wording, and slowly transformed into something that appears credible, even though the original source may have been completely inaccurate or taken out of context. And this is exactly how narratives like XRP to $60,000 begin to gain traction. In many cases, these claims are not directly fabricated, but are instead based on extreme interpretations of hypothetical scenarios where someone takes a long term possibility, removes all context, and presents it as a short term certainty, which creates excitement and urgency among viewers who feel like they might miss out on a massive opportunity if they do not act quickly. Another major factor behind the spread of this narrative is the psychology of investors, especially in the crypto market, where fear of missing out plays a huge role in decision making. Because when people see bold claims and large price targets being discussed repeatedly, they start to believe that there must be some truth behind it, even if they have not personally verified the information. And this leads to a chain reaction where more and more people begin sharing the same idea without questioning its validity. At the same time, content creators and influencers also play a role in amplifying these narratives because dramatic headlines attract more views, more engagement, and more subscribers. And while not everyone intentionally spreads misinformation, the pressure to create attention grabbing content often leads to exaggeration, which further blurs the line between realistic analysis and pure speculation. It is also important to understand that the mention of well known financial names or publications in these claims adds a layer of perceived credibility. Because when people hear that a respected source has confirmed something, they are much more likely to believe it without doing additional research, even if no such confirmation actually exists. And this technique is commonly used to make a narrative appear more trustworthy than it really is. In addition to this, there are certain groups within the crypto community that genuinely believe in extremely high price targets for XRP based on long term global adoption scenarios. And while these discussions can be interesting from a theoretical perspective, they are often misunderstood or misrepresented as short term predictions, which creates confusion among viewers who may not fully understand the difference between speculation and realistic market expectations. Another key reason why this narrative continues to spread is that XRP already has a strong and passionate community that closely follows every update related to the asset. And whenever there is positive news or even rumors about regulatory progress or institutional interest, it creates a surge of optimism that makes people more receptive to bold predictions, even if those predictions are not grounded in reality. What makes this situation even more complex is that there are real developments happening around XRP that give people hope for future growth, such as increasing discussions about regulation, partnerships, and potential use cases in global finance. And these real factors often get mixed together with unrealistic claims, making it difficult for the average viewer to separate fact from fiction. This is why it becomes essential for anyone following XRP or any cryptocurrency to develop the habit of critical thinking, where instead of immediately accepting a headline, they take a moment to ask simple questions like where the information is coming from, whether it has been confirmed by reliable sources, and whether the claim actually makes sense when compared to real world data and market conditions. Because in the end, the difference between successful investors and those who fall into hype cycles is not luck, but the ability to stay calm, think clearly, and focus on facts rather than emotions, especially in a market that is constantly filled with noise, excitement, and sometimes misleading narratives that are designed to capture attention rather than provide accurate information. Now that we understand how this $60,000 narrative started and why it continues to spread, the next important step is to look at the real price potential of XRP based on actual market conditions, because this is where clarity replaces confusion and where smart decisions begin to take shape for investors who are serious about long term growth. When we talk about the price of any cryptocurrency, including XRP, one of the most important factors to consider is market capitalization, which simply means the total value of all coins in circulation. And this is where many unrealistic predictions start to fall apart because they completely ignore how large the overall value would need to become in order to support such extreme price levels. XRP already has a very large supply compared to many other cryptocurrencies, which means that even a moderate increase in price requires a significant amount of money flowing into the market. And when you start calculating what it would take for XRP to reach thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars per coin, the numbers quickly become extremely unrealistic under current global financial conditions. However, this does not mean that XRP does not have strong potential, because in reality, it is one of the few cryptocurrencies that has a clear use case in the financial world, particularly in cross border payments where speed, low cost, and efficiency are critical. And this is where XRP continues to stand out compared to many other digital assets that are still searching for real world adoption. Ripple, the company closely associated with XRP, has been working for years to build partnerships with banks, financial institutions, and payment providers. And this ongoing effort is one of the key reasons why XRP remains relevant in the market despite facing regulatory challenges in the past, because it is not just a speculative asset, but a technology that aims to solve real problems in global finance. Another major factor that can influence the future price of XRP is regulation, especially in the United States, where legal clarity can open the door for institutional investment and broader adoption. And as more clarity emerges, it creates confidence among investors who may have been hesitant to enter the market due to uncertainty, which can lead to gradual price growth over time. In addition to regulation, liquidity and utility also play a crucial role in determining how far XRP can realistically go. Because if more financial institutions begin using XRP for real transactions, it increases demand in a natural and sustainable way rather than relying on hype or speculation. And this type of growth is much more stable and long lasting compared to sudden price spikes driven by viral narratives. It is also important to compare XRP with other major cryptocurrencies to understand its realistic position in the market, because assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum have reached high valuations over time due to a combination of adoption, scarcity, and strong investor confidence. And while XRP operates differently, it can still benefit from similar growth patterns if adoption continues to expand in the coming years. Realistic price predictions for XRP often fall within a much more reasonable range, where gradual growth is expected as adoption increases and market conditions improve, rather than extreme jumps to unrealistic levels within weeks. And this is where experienced investors tend to focus their attention, because steady growth backed by real fundamentals is far more reliable than sudden hype driven movements. At the same time, it is worth noting that the crypto market can be unpredictable. And there are moments where prices move faster than expected due to sudden shifts in sentiment, major announcements, or broader market trends. But even in those situations, the movements are usually within a logical range rather than reaching levels that defy basic economic principles. This is why understanding the difference between possibility and probability is so important, because while anything can be imagined in theory, not everything is likely to happen in reality, especially within a short time frame. And investors who recognize this difference are better positioned to make decisions that are based on logic rather than emotion. In the case of XRP, the real opportunity lies in its long term potential as a utility driven asset that could benefit from increasing adoption in the financial sector. And while it may not reach $60,000 in weeks, it still has the potential to grow in value over time if the right conditions are met, which makes it an asset worth watching closely for those who are interested in the future of digital finance. After understanding the reality behind price predictions and the actual potential of XRP based on fundamentals, the next important question becomes what could truly drive a major price surge in XRP? Because while extreme claims like $60,000 are unrealistic in the short term, there are still powerful factors that can push XRP into significant growth phases if the right conditions come together at the right time. One of the biggest triggers for any major movement in XRP is regulatory clarity, especially in the United States, because for a long time, uncertainty around legal status has limited how institutions interact with XRP. And once clear and favorable regulations are fully established, it can remove a major barrier that has been holding back large scale investment, which in turn can lead to a strong increase in demand. When institutions feel confident that they can use XRP without facing legal risks, it opens the door for banks, payment providers, and financial companies to integrate XRP into their systems more aggressively. And this is where the real value of XRP begins to show, because it is designed to facilitate fast and low cost cross border transactions, which is a massive market that involves trillions of dollars moving globally every day. Another key factor that could trigger a significant price increase is real world adoption at scale, because the more XRP is used in actual financial transactions, the more demand is created in a natural and sustainable way. And this type of demand is very different from speculative buying because it is driven by utility rather than hype, making it more stable and long lasting. Ripple's ongoing efforts to expand its payment network across different countries and regions also play a crucial role in this process, because every new partnership or integration adds another layer of real world usage. And over time, these small developments can combine to create a much larger impact on the overall demand for XRP. Liquidity is another important element that often gets overlooked, because for XRP to function effectively in large scale financial operations, there needs to be deep liquidity in the market. And as liquidity increases, it becomes easier for institutions to move large amounts of money using XRP without causing major price fluctuations, which makes it more attractive as a financial tool. In addition to these factors, overall market conditions in the crypto space can also influence XRP's price, because when the broader market enters a bullish phase, it creates positive momentum across multiple assets, including XRP. And this kind of environment can amplify the impact of positive developments, leading to stronger price movements than what would occur in a neutral or bearish market. Another potential trigger that cannot be ignored is the role of investor sentiment, because perception often drives short term price action in the crypto market. And when confidence begins to build around XRP due to positive news or developments, it can attract more buyers into the market, creating upward pressure on price even before the full impact of those developments is realized. At the same time, it is important to recognize that even strong triggers do not lead to instant or unlimited price growth, because markets move in cycles, and every upward movement is usually followed by periods of consolidation or correction, which is a natural part of any healthy market. And understanding this helps investors stay realistic and avoid getting caught up in unrealistic expectations. What makes XRP particularly interesting is that it sits at the intersection of traditional finance and the crypto world, which means that its growth potential is influenced by both sectors. And if it successfully bridges the gap between these two systems, it could position itself as a key player in the future of global payments, which is a long term narrative that many investors are watching closely. So while headlines about extreme price targets may grab attention, the real story lies in these underlying factors that have the potential to drive meaningful and sustainable growth over time. And investors who focus on these fundamentals are more likely to make informed decisions rather than reacting to short term hype that often fades as quickly as it appears. After breaking down every part of this viral narrative, from where it started to what actually drives the price of XRP, the most important takeaway becomes very clear, and that is the difference between hype and reality. Because in a market like crypto, where information spreads extremely fast, it is very easy to get influenced by bold claims. But long term success always comes from understanding facts rather than following emotions. The idea of XRP reaching $60,000 in a matter of weeks may sound exciting, and it naturally captures attention because it suggests a level of financial opportunity that most people dream about. But when we carefully analyze the data, market structure, and real world conditions, it becomes obvious that such a move is not realistic within a short time frame. And this is not a negative thing, because it helps investors stay grounded and make better decisions. At the same time, it is equally important to recognize that XRP still holds a strong position in the crypto market due to its real world use case, ongoing development, and its connection to global financial systems, which means that while extreme price predictions may not be accurate, the asset itself still has meaningful potential for growth over time if adoption continues to expand and market conditions remain favorable. What separates successful investors from the majority is not access to secret information, but the ability to stay patient, think critically, and avoid getting caught in cycles of hype that often lead to poor decision making. Because when people act based on fear of missing out, they tend to enter the market at the wrong time and exit at the wrong time, which ultimately reduces their chances of long term success. This is why it is so important to build a mindset that focuses on research and understanding, where every claim is questioned, every source is verified, and every decision is based on logic rather than emotion. Because in a fast moving environment like crypto, clarity is one of the most valuable advantages an investor can have. As the market continues to evolve, there will always be new headlines, new predictions, and new narratives competing for attention. And while some of them may contain elements of truth, many will be exaggerated or misleading, which makes it even more important to stay disciplined and focused on what actually matters, including adoption, utility, regulation, and overall market trends. Looking ahead, XRP remains an asset that many investors are watching closely, not because of unrealistic short term price targets, but because of its potential role in the future of digital payments and financial infrastructure. And if it continues to build on its strengths, it could see gradual and meaningful growth over time, which is a far more sustainable path compared to sudden spikes driven by speculation. In the end, the goal is not to chase unrealistic numbers, but to understand the bigger picture, because those who take the time to learn and analyze are the ones who are better prepared to take advantage of real opportunities when they appear. And this approach not only reduces risk, but also increases the chances of making smarter and more confident decisions in the long run. Now, before ending this video, it is important to say this clearly so that you stay safe in this market. This content is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice, because the crypto market is highly volatile and prices can change at any time. So always do your own research before making any investment decision, and never invest money that you cannot afford to lose. If you found this breakdown helpful and want more clear and realistic updates like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay connected, because understanding the market is the first step toward making better decisions. And I will continue bringing you the information that actually matters without the noise and without the hype.